So good afternoon, everyone, and let's begin with today's class. All right. Now, in the last few classes, or rather from the time you started with your online classes, we have done two chapters. One is the those based on normality, molarity, that chapter, and the other one that we did was atomic structure. Now, the third chapter that we are going to do is periodic table and periodic properties of the elements. Now, this is, you can say, a kind of a continuation of what you did in standard 10 regarding the periodic table, all right, and the periodic properties. You will definitely be studying in a more detailed fashion than what you did in standard 10. Now, all of you can see that you have this periodic table on the screen, and I don't know how many of you, because I don't get to see you all, so I don't know how many of you are actually familiar with the periodic table, but the historical development of the periodic table you all had done in standard 10. In fact, I think you do it in 9. So you have you start off with the Doberanus triads, and then you do the Newlands octaves. There were other chemists also in between who did some work on grouping, but the important ones that you study are the Doberanus triads, and you do the Newlands law of octaves, and then of course you come down to the Mendeleev's periodic table, and of course in between Lothar Mayer's arrangement is also to be studied. Unitary method theory is there, Cook's method is there. But all these are very less important. The most important one that you did was, the first one that you did was Doberanus triads. Now think about it, children. When in those years, when these elements, one by one were being discovered, okay, then this was talking sometime in 1815, 1854, around that time, in that century. When these elements were being discovered one by one, the scientists, or you can say the chemists at that time, started thinking that we need to group these elements, all right, such that the study of the elements would become easier. Imagine right now if you have 118, 119 elements, all right, and each element has to be studied individually. Humanly, it is not possible. So what we do is we have grouped them. They have been grouped by these people who worked on it to form a periodic table. And the present periodic table that you see in your books or in the lab when you go, it is a big, wall hanging periodic table that is there. This periodic table was not, built in a day, just like you say, no, that Rome was not built in a day. Similarly, the periodic table was, it just did not happen that one day the scientists sat and they made the periodic table. It is not like that. Actually, it started with the concept of grouping the elements. So since you have to do a little bit of historical development in standard 11 also, so I'm going to the history part a little bit. And so the Doberanus triads started as the first attempt to group these elements. Of course, he wasn't very successful for the reason that he did find triads. All right, what were these triads? The first and the third element were taken, and their atomic masses were added up. And when it was divided, the average of those two atomic masses was taken. Then the middle one almost had the same atomic mass as the average of the first and the third one. So this was the triads that you have studied. Okay. However, you know the defects of Doberanus triads, that it did not work out for most of the elements. In fact, if you go for the halogens, it worked for the, if you go with fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine, it worked for chlorine, bromine, and iodine, but it actually did not work for fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. So placing all the elements in the triads was becoming a tedious thing to do, and it wasn't working out well. So then the Newlands law of octaves was put forward. And Newland's law of octaves, as it is said, octaves is actually associated with music, where you have these notes, and the musical notes are there. So since he was into music and all, so he said that, okay, we can have these elements arranged in such a way that the eighth element will always show similar properties with the first element from wherever you start. Now, he was actually the first one to actually, form the columns, and the arrangement in the tabular form was put forward by him. But again, his also faced problems, because the Newland law of octaves, that time even the inert gases were not discovered, and all the elements could not be placed easily according to his concept. And remember that the Doberanus triads, the Newland's law of octaves, and the Mendeleev's periodic table, they were all being formed and designed based on their atomic masses. All right. On the basis of their increasing atomic mass, they were trying to form the periodic table. But actually, what happened was that it was later, that is later, when Mendeleev's periodic table was already put forward, with a few gaps in between for the undiscovered elements. Actually, around 63 elements were only known when Mendeleev had put forward his periodic table. It underwent a little modification when, after a few years, when more elements were discovered. But then still it wasn't satisfactory, because what happened was that some of the elements, when you were arranging them according to the atomic masses, they were not falling in the same order that they should. Okay, I think I have the Mendeleev's periodic table with me here. So this is the Mendeleev's periodic table, and you know that you have studied this in standard 9 or 10, and you know that in this case, you see, you have these groups like 1 to 8. So we can be thankful to, or we can say that Mendeleev was the first one to actually come up with groups and periods in a periodic table. But his way of forming the table, his way of arranging the elements in the table was also not satisfactory, was also not found satisfactory. But his contributions, which are very important, were that he was actually able to leave space for the undiscovered elements like Eka aluminium. This you all have studied, if I'm not mistaken, that he did leave place for these undiscovered elements, and like Eka aluminium, Eka silicon, so which were later discovered, and the properties were found to be almost what he was suggesting. So later on, the Mendeleev's periodic table was also, put forward with more additions when the elements were discovered. And you can find in the Mendeleev's periodic table, aluminium and silicon have been placed. You see, in this case, aluminium and silicon have been placed, but they were discovered later. Initially, when he started arranging the elements, then only maybe 63 elements were known. However, not going much into the history and the defects and the contributions, because you all have done that already in standard 9. We will be moving straight to the periodic table. But Mendeleev's periodic table, the greatest drawback was that it was based on atomic mass. And if it was based on atomic masses, that time the isotopes were not discovered. And with the discovery of the isotopes, placing of the elements was becoming a problem, because the same element couldn't be placed in two places. So later on, what happened was that the new periodic table that was formed, which was, actually based on the atomic number, that was forwarded by, or this was in 1913. So you can imagine how many years it has been. So 1913 and 2013. So 100 years and plus another few years. So you can see that Moseley put forward his concept, and he said that the periodic table can be actually, if you look at the periodic table, it is actually based on the atomic number. And when right from standard 9, you learn that atomic number is the identity of an element. If the atomic number changes, element will change. This is for sure. So that is why when the atomic number concept was adopted, it actually became very convenient to use the periodic table, which we know today as the modern periodic table. And the modern periodic law tells you that the physical and chemical properties of the element are the periodic functions of their atomic numbers. So actually, Moseley showed that the atomic number and not the atomic mass is the more fundamental property of an element. All right, so that contribution towards the modern periodic table, that credit goes to Moseley because he was the one to show that. Okay, so of course then the long form of periodic table was then later put forward. See children, as and when, because see science is not stagnant. Okay, as and when the things are discovered, more and more improvisation takes place, and the periodic table that we know today, all right, is what we have studied, and even you all are going to study with a little few minor changes here and there. Like in the group number, we have studied on the basis of group number 1A, 2A, then we have the subgroups A and B, and the D block elements would fall under the those elements where the D block was being filled up, or the D orbitals were being filled up. That would fall under the B subgroup, and the others, the representative elements, would fall under the A subgroup. But according to the latest instructions from the council, you have to follow the modern way of numbering the groups and the periods, which begins from 1 and goes up to 18. So in this case, that explanation of the subgroup A and B, I don't have to give you that. Okay, so if I start with the groups first, you can see in the periodic table, very clearly this periodic table is showing different colors and all. You can see the first group. Since you all have already done, we will be doing it a little faster. This is the first group, which is also called as the alkali metal group. All right. And why are they called as alkali metals? Because these elements, they react with water to form alkalis. All right. Then the second group is called as the alkaline earth metals. You can see the first element is hydrogen. The second element is helium in the first period. This is called as the first period. Okay, and you have hydrogen and helium. Then is lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and neon. Now, if you look at the electronic configuration of lithium and you compare that to hydrogen, hydrogen has only one electron in its outermost shell. If you go with lithium, now in standard 9 and 10, you would just write 2 and 1. All right, atomic number for lithium is 3. So now if I am writing, I can write this as 1s2 and then 2s1. Okay, so which one is the valence shell? This one is the valence shell. So based on the valence shell, I can place the element in the periodic table. All right, now you see in this case, which one is the valence shell? Second period. All right, therefore the element belongs to the second period. How many valence electron it has? 1, and therefore it is placed in group 1. Okay, comparing this to hydrogen, when you are going down the group, when you go down the group in a periodic table, all the elements will have the same number of valence electrons. So if I talk about hydrogen, I talk about lithium, let's talk about sodium. Atomic number for sodium is 11. How do you write the electronic configuration for sodium then? Electronic configuration for sodium is, atomic number is 11. So you write it as 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, all right, and then 3s1. Okay, so 3, third period, because which shell is being filled up? The third shell. So the element belongs to the third period, and you have one valence electron, so it belongs to the first group. All right, so all these elements will have the same way of doing it, because when you come to potassium, there also the electronic configuration is like till here, then you have 3s2, 3p6, then 4s1. All right, so you have 3s2, along with these, you have 3s2, 3p6, and then you have 4s1. All right, so again, it is in the fourth period and it has one valence electron, so it is in the first group. So this is how the elements of the first group have one electron in their outermost shell. If you go to the second group, all right, in the case of the second group, you will find, let us take the case of beryllium. Atomic number is 4. So how do you write the electronic configuration? 1s2, 2s2. So to which, what will be the position of this element be in the periodic table? If you have to know that, then which shell is being filled up? Second shell. So obviously its period is going to be the second period, that we know. Okay, and how many electrons are there? 2 electrons are there in the valence shell. So it will belong to which group? It will belong to group 2. Hence, it belongs to group 2. All these elements in group 2 will have 2 electrons in their outermost shell, but their outermost shell number keeps on increasing, and therefore, when you are going down the group, the atomic size is also increasing. Okay, so what is common in the case of the groups? The outermost, that is the valence shell electron number, is the same. All right, now let us come to the next one, that if you see in the periodic table, you see in the periodic table, let me clear this. In the periodic table, you see this is group, this is period 1, period 2, period 3. All right, till here no problem because you have 1 and 2 and then okay. But then after this, it goes straight to group number 13. Okay, so hydrogen goes straight to group number 18 in the first period. Second period, you have lithium and beryllium, and then you straight go to group number 13. Okay, what is the reason behind this is that when you come to the filling of the electrons in the fourth shell, due to the overlapping, the 3d orbitals start intervening here. All right, so the d orbitals are in between the 4s and the 4p. Remember doing that in the periodic table. So if I do this like this, suppose if I'm talking about scandium with atomic number 21, okay, then in this case, the electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, okay, 3s2, then 3p6, then you have 4s2, all right. See now, this is making it 20. Where does the 21st electron enter? It enters into the 3d subshells. So this is 3d. Now, both these shells are considered to be the valence shell. When they are considered to be the valence shell, the number of electrons in the valence shell are how many? 3. 2 of 4s and 1 of 3d. So the total number of electrons are 3. Hence, that group has been called as group 3. Okay. Earlier, it was called as 3b. Why? Because the D block, filling of the D block element started. It was a little easier to remember which one would be the D block. Why? Because if it is the subgroup B, that means the D block elements are being filled up. But now again, according to the latest notification, you have to just do from, in the modern way, you have to begin from 1 and go up to 18. All right. So scandium belongs to group 3. Which period but? So many children confuse and they say that since the electron is entering in the third period, it will be in the third shell, so it will be in the third period. But that is not the case. Why? Because the fourth shell has already been touched, remember. So once the 4s has been touched, the element is going to belong to fourth period, but it is going to belong to group number 3. And which orbitals are being filled up? The 3d orbitals. All right, let us talk about a very common element that you know, that is atomic number 26. What is the position of this element in the periodic table? Let us say you are asked this. So knowing all this, till here, that is 3s2, 3p6 if I talk about, that means this is the argon's, what you say, electronic configuration. So I can also write this as argon, and then I can write 4s2 and 3d. Or if I'm writing just the outermost electrons in the valence shell, then both these shells will be taken into consideration. So you have 4s2, and you know that till 4s2, 20 electrons have been added. So you now have 6 electrons. So this is going to be 3d6. All right. So if it is 3d6 in the case of iron, if it is 3d6, to which period will it belong? Obviously to the fourth period. So the position is in the fourth period. All right. But which group will it be? Again, 6 plus 2 you will take. So it is going to belong to the 8th group. That is group number 8. You can check the periodic table. You'll see that it is in group number 8. All right. According to the old notation also it was in 8. But according to the old notation in the group 8, there were 9 elements which were, arranged in a row. And since all of them behave differently, they were all classified together under group number 8. But now, according to the modern periodic numbering, periodic table numbering of the groups, you have to start from 1 and go up to 18. So you have 8, 9, 10 and so on. Yes, in the last class we were doing for the atomic number 29, or zinc is 30, let us say. So in this case also it's going to be argon. Then you have 4s2, all right, and 3d10. Okay, now you will say, some children will say that, okay, if it is 4s2 3d10, that means the 3d orbitals are completely filled. So now it is going to have 4s2. So it should be placed, in group 2 because the 3d has been completely filled. But remember, in the last electron has actually entered the 4s1. All right. Why? Because of the presence of 3d. Because if it was copper 39, okay, if it was copper 39, copper 29, then the electronic configuration would have been like this: 4s1 and 3d10. Again, there is a point to debate that if it is 4s1, then the elements, because since the 3d is completely filled, so the valence electron is only 1. So should its group number be also 1? But this is not the case, because when you compare the elements, electronic configuration of elements in group 1 and that in group 11, see, this is group 11 and this is group 12. If you compare group 12 and 2, and if you compare group 11 and 1, you will see that in case of group 1, the n minus 1d orbitals are not filled. Remember, in group number 1, n minus 1d orbitals beginning from the fourth period, they are fully empty. Okay, but if I am talking about group number 11, the 3d orbitals have been filled up. All right, and then the 4s1 is there. Again, one of the electrons from 4s has jumped and gone to 3d to give it a completely filled stability. Hence, in this case, the total number of electrons that are considered for group number will be 11. All right, and in the case of zinc, it will be 12 plus 2, that is 10 plus 2, that is 12. Hence, the group numbers are 11 and 12. So, what is the basic difference between group 1 electronic configuration and group 11 configuration? And what is the difference between group 2 and group 12? Important question, because in the case of group 1, only the last, that is the valence electron has, valence shell has 1 electron. All right, 1 number of valence electron. In group 11 also 1 number of valence electrons, because n minus 1 d subshell has been filled. Why do we say n minus 1? Because n is considered to be the outermost shell, that is the shell which is in the outermost end. So if I am talking about, let me go back to copper again. So if I am talking about copper, you see, this is 4s1 and 3d10. So this is the nth shell. This is considered to be the nth shell, all right, which is the valence shell. And which shell is now being filled up in this case? That is 3d, that is n minus 1d. Why do we write it in general as n minus 1d? Is because when you go to the fifth period, then what? If you go to the fifth period, let me pick up one element from fifth period. Let us say just under zinc, I think it is cadmium. And if it is cadmium, in this case, its electronic configuration will be, I think it's going to be, krypton will be there, all right. And it's going to be, in this case, if I'm writing, it's going to be 5s1 and 4d10. You see, 5s1 and 4d10. So if it is 5s1 and 4d10, and this is considered as n, then 4d will be n minus 1. This you come across very often in studying of the periodic table, that where you are saying n minus 1 d shells. So what are n minus 1 d shells? They are, n stands for the valence shell. So one shell less d orbitals are being filled up. That is what is to be understood here. Understand? So this is it. Now when you come to group number 13, all right, in that case what happens? So if I'm talking about copper, I'm talking about zinc, then after zinc it is gallium with atomic number 31. Now what is its position in the periodic table? How would you justify its position in the periodic table? So if I'm talking about gallium with atomic number 31, then how will I write its electronic configuration? So electronic configuration is 1s2, then 2s2, of course, same as like that. So 2p6, then you have a 3s2, Then you have a 3p6 and 4s2. All right. Then 3d10 has been completely filled up, mind you. 3d10 completely filled up. Okay. And then you start filling the 4p and it's going to be 4p1. Okay. So now you see in this case it is 4p1. So should the number of valence electron be taken as 1? No. Why? Because in this case, if it is 4p1, then it is actually the valence shell which is now being filled up, and n-1 d subshells have been already filled up. So total number of these electrons will give its group number. So the group number is actually 3 plus the 10 electrons that have filled up the d orbitals. That is why its group number is 13. For gallium, atomic number 31, its group number is 13. All right. Similarly, if you talk about halogens, all right. So suppose the halogen, if I'm talking, okay, let's compare fluorine, chlorine and all of them. So in that case, you see, if I'm talking about, first let me talk about chlorine then. So if I'm talking about chlorine, atomic number is 17. So electronic configuration will go as 1s2, 2s2, then 2p6, all right, then 3s2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then 3s2, all right, I need 7 electrons, so this is going to be 3p5. Remember, no electron from 3s is going to jump and go to 3p, all right. This kind of jumping is possible only when there is overlapping. Here, these orbitals are not overlapping, so no jumping is permitted. So this makes it 3s2, 3p5. So the last electron has entered which shell? The third shell. So it is in period number 3. All right. So the period number is 3. How many valence electrons are there? 7. All right. But again, in this case, even though the d orbital series is not there, all right, this is written as 10 plus 7, that is 17. Why has this method been adopted? Is because when you go to the 4th period, all right, when you go to the 4th period, there you see, if you talk about bromine, all right, if I'm talking about bromine, electronic configuration for bromine is also, now this is atomic number 35, so it is going to be 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, right? Then you have 4s2, then you are going to have 4s2 and you have 4p5. All right. So 7. But before this 4p was filled in, 10 electrons had entered the 3d subshell. All right. 10 electrons entered the 3d subshell. And so that is why the group number has been added up, like the 10 plus 7 electrons have been taken. So it becomes 17. So the same thing happens in the other halogens that are following it. So this is how you can actually place an element in the periodic table. Okay. Now, if you look at the periodic table, there are many other things to understand as well. All right. Now, what are those things to understand? Let us see this. Let me clear this and go to the periodic table. And you see in this case, the 3D series is given very nicely here. Okay. It is given very nicely here because after calcium, scandium, then titanium, then vanadium, chromium, and so on it goes. Then you have yttrium, zirconium. All right. So this continues and you have. But when you come to the 6th period, there is again something to understand here. All right. This is where the lanthanides have been placed. This is where the lanthanides have been placed. Why are the lanthanides placed here? Because if you go with the electronic configuration of lanthanides, elements following lanthanum, all right, see, elements following lanthanum are called as lanthanides. Now there is a debate. Is lanthanum also a lanthanide, or the elements following lanthanum are lanthanides? So different books have different way of representing it. Now in this periodic table, you see the lanthanum has been placed along with the lanthanide series under the periodic table. But in your book, you will find that in the periodic table, the lanthanum has been placed here and the lanthanides are actually starting from hafnium and then, starting from cerium and going up to lutetium. Then hafnium is the next element that enters the D shell. All right. So to understand why they have been placed in group 3b, what is the reason that they are in group 3 here? All right, 3b is the old notation, new notation is group 3. Then we have to again go into the electronic configuration. So if I go into its electronic configuration again, you think about it, lanthanum is atomic number 57. All right. In the case of lanthanum, if I'm talking about atomic number 57, okay, lanthanum belongs to period number 6. So obviously the 6s electrons are involved. So it is 6s2. All right. And in this case, the other day we did the electronic configuration, if you remember. We did that there is a 4f0 and there is a 5d1. All right. And this is how the electronic configuration continues. Okay. Now that is why they have been placed along with the D block elements. Okay. Now the next one is it becomes 6s2 and 4f becomes 3. Sorry, 2, and 5d becomes 0. All right. And then 14 elements are added one after the other. 14 electrons are being added into the outer shell, into the subshell, into the orbits, and 14 protons are being added one after the other in the nucleus, giving a range of 14 elements, because the F block can take a maximum of 14 electrons. Okay. So this is how it is happening. And if I write the electronic configuration for this in a generalized form, then it will be what? Then in that case, it is NS2. Okay. Then you have N minus 1. All right. I think we did this the other day. It's going to be 0 or 1, and N minus 2 F subshells are being filled up. All right. So in the case of N minus 2 F subshells, the way of writing, some write it in general from 0 to 14. Okay. Or 1 to 14. Some write it as 0, then they give a comma, then they write 2 to 7, because once the half field stability has been attained, the electron goes to 5d. Okay. So when it goes to 5d, then it gets excited, moves to a higher level, and then again the electrons start entering the F subshell. So then again a comma is given, and from 9 to 14 it is written. Actually, third, in this case, what happens is that the D shells will have 0 electrons unless the half filled and the completely filled stability is met with. Okay, so this is the general way of writing the electronic configuration. And therefore what happens is that all these lanthanides which are in the 6th period have been placed in group 3. What about the actinides? Actinides are in one period below that, and they have all been placed in group 3 in the 7th period. Okay. And why is it that these elements have been placed like this under the periodic table? The reason being that when it is placed under the periodic table, then it will not distort the shape of the periodic table. Okay, let's go to the periodic table and I'll tell you what happens. Suppose if all these were to be placed, then you would need to stretch the periodic table, you would need to stretch the periodic table apart. And then again, you would find, 2 rows of these elements in the periodic table, meaning that the periodic table would look something like, if I'm drawing the periodic table here. Okay, let me do it on the white page. You can understand. See, if this is the way you are looking at it now, okay, this is how it is there. This is the outline that I'm drawing, okay, and this is how the periodic table is. This is just the outline that I'm showing, okay, and 2 rows have been placed here. But if these rows had to be accommodated here, then what would be the structure like? All right, to understand that, see, in that case, the structure would be, it will all get cleared anyway. So in that case, the structure would be like, you have this, then you have this, okay, then you come down, okay, deep down here, then you have these 2 rows here, then you will have the D block elements, then you will have the P block elements, and then the first element. So the structure of the periodic table would be something like this. All right, this stretching would have to be done for 14 elements to be accommodated. 14 elements have to be accommodated. Now, this would become a little impractical for representation. Hence, these elements have been placed in 2 rows under the periodic table. So that is why the periodic table looks like as it is given in the thing. Okay, now coming next to, if we are talking about the periodic table like this, then once you have understood what the periodic table is all about, one second, then you must know that this is the alkali group metal, this is the alkaline earth metal, these are the transition elements that we are talking about, then these are the P block elements that we are talking about. This is group number 18, which is containing the inert gases, and these places here would be the lanthanides and actinides. These marked in blue are the metalloids, which show a transition from the metals towards the non-metal side. And of course, halogens, this group is called as the halogen, and these are called as the inert gases. Okay, so this is about the periodic table that we have. I think today we will do just this much, because tomorrow then I will have to begin with the periodic properties, and then tomorrow I will take a little longer time and explain as much as I can. Okay, because we will start with the periodic properties. Even if you have any doubts regarding the periodic table, you please clarify it, because only if you clarify and you know the periodic table well, will you be able to actually study the periodic properties. Standard 10 was much easy because you just mucked up certain things, and it was very easy that, okay, going down the group, atomic size increases, going across the period, this happens. But now you're going to learn many more terms. The screening effect, what is its effect on the atomic size, what happens to the transition elements when you're going across the period. So now it's going to be a detailed study. So that is why I'm telling you that please learn and get familiar with the periodic table. Look at the periodic table for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and see if there is something that you don't understand, then please ask. Because once you are familiar with the periodic table, the chemical bonding chapter and the periodic properties chapter will become, very easy for you to understand. Okay. And of course, on the basis of electronic configuration, how you will place the elements in the periodic table, that is also important. Because once you know the atomic number of an element, you can place the element in the periodic table. And once you place the element in the periodic table, then of course you will be able to discuss its properties, at least in generalized properties. You talk about whether it's going to be a metal, non-metal, reducing agent, oxidizing agent, what will be its nature of bond formation, all that can be understood. But however, one defect is still there with the modern periodic table, is that the position of hydrogen is debatable. So maybe we'll take up that also, and we will be learning the inner transition, that is the F block elements that we just discussed in details. We will be doing the transition elements in details, and of course the other elements also. So I think this is enough for today, and tomorrow we are connecting again at 2:30, and I expect that most of them will connect, okay, tomorrow. So is that okay now, children? Anybody who you want to say anything? Yes, children?
No, miss.
Understood what I told you? You'll need to respond, no, children?
Yes,
How will I
miss.
know?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so what we did was a very generalized thing. Again, tomorrow we will be studying this in details. And, randomly write down some atomic numbers and write its electronic configuration. And then try to place it in the periodic table. Take it as a fun game. And you see, you'll enjoy doing it. Ask your brother or younger brother or sister or anybody to just give you a number randomly. Then you write down its electronic configuration. Then you try to place the element in the periodic table. It will be such a lot of fun. Okay, you just try out at least 10 elements and you will be ready with the electronic configuration and placing the elements in the periodic table. Okay, once you know that, then the periodic properties will be an easy thing to do. Okay, all right. So I think we'll end here. Thank you, children, for connecting. Some children have not connected.
Thank you,
So
miss.
they can listen to the recording in that case. Okay.